Hey, everybody, thanks for coming out for the 1010 Life Framework. I'm pretty excited about this. Some of you guys that have been around for ages know a little bit of my background, but I've never done anything besides a youth ministry site that's been really faith based, full fledged along the lines of business and beliefs and bodies we covered today. And even though that's kind of the background. So a little bit odd. Most of my life has been spent in business, but I'll give you actually some background, which I usually do not do. Usually I'm like, hey, just go to the site and figure it out for yourself. You can figure out if you want to know anything about me or not. But because this is ministry based, a little bit different, I'll show you my background. So I was raised as a believer. I've often said that I was saved at age 12, but actually converted about age 20 when I owned a fitness center and spent all day in there from like 5 in the morning till 9 at night. You guys who own a business know that you don't work less, you actually work more. I was raised in a single mom family. My father actually left before I was even born, and then I had a stepdad for a short amount of time. But for the most part, I was raised by a single mom. I have no regrets about that. I love her to death. She has been an amazing mother, a true builder, more than anything. She was the one who always said, you can do anything that you want, whatever you set your mind to. And I remember getting up every morning, probably at 5. I've always been an early riser. We get up at 5 and the Bible would be out on the table. She would have already been up and reading. So this is an example that I grew up with. Then we moved to where I live now in Montgomery at age 12, and I became a leader in the youth group through that time. My partner in Teen Life Ministries, that's near the bottom of this list, is Al Milligren. He was actually my youth minister. And so he gave me a lot of opportunities to speak and to teach and to do a lot of those things. And then I was also during that same period into bodybuilding toward late teens and powerlifting, competed in those contests until my grandfather saw me on television in my Speedo competing. And he was a church leader. And he was like, Paul, that's got to stop. And so then I exited bodybuilding and just did powerlifting after that. Went into ministry at age 18 part time, and about age 23 entered ministry full time and was in ministry in some form even up till today. So still doing a lot of things at my church, but usually had either a full time or part time role over the last 25 or so years. I was a gym owner, age 20. I opened up my fitness center, and so I help people get in shape. This is kind of my background. Some of you know that story about me seeing the image of a bicep at age 12 that really sent me down this path of fitness and health and things along these lines. And then I became a widower and a single dad at age 23. My wife, Sherry, actually passed away in my arms. Our son Sam was 5 weeks old at that time. And those of you who are in the Facebook group, I'm looking at for one of the sermons I did a while back, and I'll actually post that story for you guys to hear. And so that was a big shift in my life. You know, that was, some would say a faith crisis, but for me, it was more about understanding that life was going to shift and life was going to be different. And the way that I was going to live from that point on took a radical turn into what I felt like was really important. Up to that point, I'd lived primarily for myself, my dreams, my goals, etc. And then after the loss of Sherry, it became a lot more about how am I able to give, how am I able to serve, how I'm going to be available for any future family that I have, and how I'm going to be available for Sam to make sure that I don't miss any of his school events, things along those lines. I also worked for a while as a 100X missions director, and we basically helped existing orphanages expand. And I traveled the world with that. We worked in 9 different countries, so that was a blast. I'm a professional speaker, started that back in my early 20s. That continues through today. I owned a mergers and acquisitions company, restaurant, mortgage company. All of these are part of my business experience and field. I'm a speaker trainer for those of you who are interested in becoming a better communicator. I'm an online business builder for those of you who say, you know what, I want to take my message and I want to multiply it. And the last section we covered today will actually tell you about how to do that. And then Teen Life Ministries is a site that myself and Al Milgren started back in the 1900s, probably 1997. And it's at teenlifeministries.com, and we supply Bible studies and class resources for youth ministers. And then personally, I've released hundreds of digital products. Some of those are classes that are like 4 weeks long, and some of those are just individual downloads that you grab and use from there. So anyway, that's a little bit of my background, and that's why with the 1010 Life, I focused on body, beliefs, and business because this is really my background. So the framework is not something that you necessarily have to adopt and that there is no way to change it. It's what I found has worked in my particular situation in life that seems to be the most congruent with most lives out there. And I think it's just a good resource and a good tool to use to have a frame of reference because life can, get so crazy and so complicated. So this is the theme verse, obviously, for 10:10. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I've come that they may have life and have it to the full. And I know a lot of believers that this is like a core verse for them because it's got the truth of how difficult life can be, kill, steal, and destroy, that we've got an enemy, and then also the truth of how full life can be. And full in this passage doesn't simply mean it gets up to the rim, but it means that it overflows. And I love that picture. And I've always liked that picture of scripture that whatever comes into our life, whether it's pain or sorrow or heartache or blessing or peace or comfort, that overflows into the life of other people. And when we're in a great mood, guess what? That great mood spills onto people. If we're in a bad mood, guess what? That bad mood will spill onto people. And so Christ said, I've come that you may have life and life to the full in a way that your life spills out very positively onto the lives of other people. And so we've got to be conscious of that and working and very intentional with making sure that our life is going to spill out in a way that reflects the Father, reflects Christ, and is extremely powerful as a testimony to the changes that have taken place within us and continue to take place. Now, that doesn't mean that we're perfect by any means, and it doesn't mean that we're not going to make mistakes, and it doesn't mean that we aren't going to do things in which people won't say something along the lines of, well, if that's the way the Christians are, well, I don't want to be one, right? We sadly will do things at times that will make that happen. On the opposite side, we'll have a lot more times and a lot more examples of our reactions that are so opposite to the norm that people are very attracted and they want to know, how'd you get that peace? How'd you get that joy? How do you have that type of life? The truth is, like, take the loss of Sherry. If I didn't tell people about that, they wouldn't know about it because I don't wear that. I don't feel like a victim. I don't feel like I was picked on. I don't feel like I was, pulled out of the crowd so that I would have a hurtful situation that maybe other people don't experience. That's never even crossed my mind. But if I was living in a way that was constantly in that pain from all those years ago, that would not be a positive overflow at all. So we've got to have the type of life that ends up shining in a way that draws positive reflection on the Father. Like Matthew 5:16 says, let your light so shine before men they may see your good works and glorify your Father who's in heaven. Not glorifying us, but glorifying him. So let's have a discussion real quick about life. Life is what? Just type in some answers and it can be anything. There's no right answer here, but life is. How would you describe it? It can be about situations, it can be energy, it can be outcomes. How would you describe life? All right, I've got awesome, a gift, fulfilling my purpose, a journey, abundant, full, exciting, a struggle, trying, happy, quite a ride, an opportunity to make a difference, getting better with each year, hard some days, easier other days, what we make it, good, fertile, overwhelming, a ride, peaceful, a lot of different elements here, right? Because life is like that. Life is not this one easy flowing situation, constant, right? We've got some things in life that are overwhelming, some that are a struggle, some that are peaceful, some that are easy. As Alex says, it's a box of chocolates. That's right. You don't always know what you're going to get. You don't know what's coming down the pike every single day. Even those of us who might be, quote, control freaks. I've been labeled this at times. I just sent this to my son yesterday. He's got that DNA. He is a control freak as well. And I'll say something along the lines of, I'm not a control freak, but could I show you how to do that? That's kind of my mindset. But I can't control my life. There are a lot of things that happen in my life that I didn't choose, that I didn't even desire. And you've got the same thing that happens to you. And that's on the positive scope and it's on the negative scope. And so when we look at Christ saying, I came that you might have life to the full, that encompasses all elements. It's not just the cool elements or the good elements or the great elements or the awesome elements. He's even talking about, I'm bringing a life that allows you to make it through the negatives, the unexpected, the interruptions, the things that you wish had never happened. I'm going to make sure that you have life through all of the good and all of the bad. That's what this promise is ultimately about. And the reason I put this framework together was as a reminder to say, life may be great at times, it may be struggle at times, but how can we make sure that we're getting the most out of it overall? Now, here, if you guys are live, and you guys right now are live, but if you're watching the replay, there's an actual link underneath this video where you can download the handout. And if you're here live, then down at the bottom, there's a handout that you can just download if you haven't already. So that's the 10-10 Life Framework. And we're just going to step through this, and I'll cover each section. Then we'll stop and take any questions and see if there are any, and then we'll just move from there. So we're going to go through body, beliefs, and business. And this is a 12 box, so that body has 4 elements, beliefs has 4 elements, business have 4 elements. And these are the ones that I selected. You're more than welcome to change these if you want to, if there's something that hits you in a more powerful way. And certainly the passages that I use are things that connect with me, and there may be a way for you to there is, you ought to look at this and look at passages that affect you the most, and you can grab that. So that'll be pretty good. Dwayne asked, will you provide a copy with your cool graphics? Yeah, I can do that for sure, Dwayne. And also, guys, I don't mind you sharing the 1010.life webpage, but everything that I'm presenting today is my own IP. And so make sure you're not passing that along, but definitely pass them through to the site would be awesome. All right, so let's begin with body. Each one's going to have a core scripture, and then we'll go through the 4 essentials for each section. So body for me is 1 Corinthians 6:19, that your body is not your own. You've been bought with a price. Therefore, honor God with your body. Now, in the context of this particular passage, what was going on is that believers were supporting temple prostitutes. That's the context of this. And he ultimately says that any sin that you have, within can be more intangible, but any sin without that is physical actually affects your body itself. So he says, ultimately, what we want to do is make sure that we're honoring God with our body overall. And so I think about this as our body being the tool. It's our asset. It is our instrument. It's the thing that we need to have long term, even though there are passages that talk about that this tent is temporary. And we know that we are in the flesh, even if our spirit's eternal. That doesn't mean that we're not supposed to take care of it. It doesn't mean that we get to just to treat it any way that we want to, but instead to think about, if I'm going to have this frame long term, I need to make it as healthy as possible so that I live as long as possible so I can serve as much as possible. So 1 Corinthians 6:19. Then with beliefs, my main passage here is 2 Corinthians 10:5. And this talks about taking every thought captive and making it all obedient to Christ. This is a big passage for me because I find it extremely tough. I'm ADD, ADHD, mine's always going crazy. I'm the one usually with the quick comeback. It's not always the most appropriate. When I was on staff full time and in meetings, I was always the one that was bringing up the side of the argument that was not the most appreciated. And I wasn't taking every thought captive. And even to this day, I have a challenge with that. And I think most of us do, because these thoughts are all internal. Nobody knows what we're thinking or what's going through our mind. It could be extremely positive, it could be extremely negative. But this internal battleground is causing our actions. It causes our outcomes. It causes either pain or success within the lives of our relationships and those that we're closest to, because almost everything happens as a thought first, and then it comes out. Even the things that we say, well, I just wasn't thinking, that came out so quick, which I used that excuse for years. But the truth is, if I'd taken those thoughts captive already, if they'd been obedient already, then I would have been prepared for those situations that I just allowed the thought to come out verbally or physically without thinking. So this verse in 2 Corinthians, that we're going to take every thought captive, this gives us a great filter to make sure that everything that comes into our life, that we're being conscious of it. We're not just letting the water faucet of life just flow into us. And then also we don't let it flow out of us without being conscious of it, without being intentional. And then my primary verse for business is Colossians 3:23. Whatever your hands find to do it with all your might, working for the Lord and not for man. And this is another big one because in the handful of times that I've been actually employed, most of the time I've either worked for myself or I've owned a business. And it's pretty easy when you're employed to not like the boss or not like the coworkers or not like this or not like that, or to get up on Monday morning and dread going into the office. But this verse recalibrates because it says that we're working for the Lord, not for man. This is a higher calling, it's a higher reason, and it takes like and dislike out of the way. So that if I'm doing this as if I'm pleasing the Lord and not pleasing myself, I'm working for him and not for this particular boss or not for this particular manager. It radically shifts my focus and my reason for what I'm doing. So this verse, even as someone who's self-employed, still monitors everything that I do, even if I'm working in an area where I may not be as free to be vocal about my faith. I can still represent the Father in a way that is honorable, that is right, that's acceptable, and I may not be thrilled about the situation, but I can still follow the scripture. So in business, for me, Colossians 3:23 is the one that I look at the most. So again, those three: 1 Corinthians 6:19 for body, if you're writing this down, taking notes; 2 Corinthians 10:5 for beliefs; and Colossians 3:23 for business. All right, so we're going to start with body, and we're going to go through the framework. If you got that downloaded, you can take notes. If you don't, you can just kind of draw out these sections or just take notes on a blank sheet of paper to keep up along the way. So with body, number one is our mission. Our mission, understanding what we're about. We love to talk about purpose, and we love to have this almost special assignment. One of my best friends coming up was big time into the special assignment. He always wanted the burning bush. He always wanted the specific call. And while some people get that, the truth is the majority of people don't. We're a little bit uncomfortable with that because we love to quote verses like that, I have plans for you. And so we love to quote that and feel like, well, everybody's got this individual plan. But you look at somebody like Moses, who he received the vision, and then he led 2 million people out of Egypt who had not received the vision. In fact, they were reluctant to go. They did not receive the same purpose, the same calling, at least that they knew about. And so often we want this special assignment. And whether or not we get that, we can be very clear on our mission so that we understand why we're strengthening our body. So a lot of times when it comes to our mission in life, we're clueless. And what we want to do is we want to become clear. And the verse that I use most with that is Mark 10:45. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life a ransom for many. So I love this verse because it clarifies that whether or not I get a special assignment and whether or not I feel like I know what, quote, my specific purpose is, I know I can take this on as my mission, that I'm here to serve and not be served. I'm clear on that. I think that is a pretty obvious reason for existence. So if my mission is to serve, it makes sense that since my body is the tool for that I'm going to try to keep it as healthy as possible and as in shape as possible. Now, I don't think this means that I've got to go overboard and never eat bacon again. Let's not get crazy. Or never eat another donut. I could go that route completely. And if I was convinced by that in scripture, I might do that. But for the most part, I look at it as I want to be in good health and in good shape. I don't want my body to be such a dominant focus that I never serve. That I'm so excited about getting in shape or running marathons or triathlons. And first of all, let me tell you guys, I've managed in 47 years to keep my goal of never entering a triathlon. So I'm dead on track. But if I lose my mind and I decide that I'm going to do that, chances are I'm not going to have near as much time to serve, right? So in my head, I'm thinking, how do I stay in good shape and stay healthy so that I can maximize my service? My body is not the focus of my existence. My body is the tool of the focus of my existence, which is to serve. So this may be a verse that you want to choose, or you may have another one that you want to use to really clarify with your body and what you want to focus on. The second is manna. So if you're following along on your sheet, it'll be the second block there. So manna is about our nutrition. It's about what we eat, because our bodies are actually fairly fragile, and we each need to know our bodies well enough to know what we react to. Some people have to be gluten free, and myself, I've actually got a poultry allergy. It will close my throat up and I will go into anaphylactic shock, which is interesting being in ministry, because the saying is preach the word and eat the bird, because they're always, serving fried chicken in almost every single event that I go to here in the South, especially after you've preached somewhere. And I'm always like, I can't, it will kill me. So our bodies are fragile. We need to know what our bodies react to and what's healthy and what works the best. So we're going to move from fragile to fueled, to thinking about what we need to eat that is going to provide the type of nutrition and the type of health needed to produce the result that we want. And throughout Scripture, we've got the example of fuel being critical, not just for physical health, but for mental health as well. So 1 Samuel 28:22. Now please listen to your servant and let me give you some food so that you may eat and have strength and go on your way. Saul had actually entered a place of almost depression because he was without food. In 1 Kings 19, we have Elijah who entered depression because he did not have enough to eat. And most of us, when our glycogen stores get low and when our blood sugar gets too low, it really messes us up and we get out of line completely. And so we've got to be focused on what we're eating and the way that we're eating. Now, again, we can get super complicated with this, and everybody's going to have a different nutritional protocol that they love to push. For me, I think about it from the standpoints of I want some good, healthy proteins at every meal. I want to make sure that if I'm eating carbohydrates, that they're going to be slower digesting carbs, or even more along the lines of more fibrous carbs like spinach or broccoli, things that in the past I would have never eaten. And then with the fats, they're going to be healthy fats from fish and some other sources, omega-3s, even eggs. They've been proven that the fats in the eggs are not as dangerous as they said all those years ago. But the bottom line is that we're just going to be wise. We're going to be wise with our food choices. We're going to be wise with our food amounts. I'm not going to tell you specifics to eat. In a future training within 1010, I'll go into my own personal specifics and what I eat, why I eat that, and how I use it for fuel and energy. But for the most part, we just need to think wise. If we decide to go to a restaurant that has an all-you-care-to-eat buffet, and we think I'm going to get my money's worth, that's not the wisest. If I decide that all I'm going to drink is sweet tea, living here in the South, or soda somewhere else, it's not the wisest move. As much as we love it, it's not wise to consume that constantly and all the time. So with our manna, we want to make sure that our body is fueled in the right way. Again, avoiding extremes so that we're not going to say, I'm never eating another piece of pie again. But at the same time, we're not going to just eat pie. So we've got to be wise in our food choices. And then muscle. We're going to move from weak to being strong. And I like John chapter 2 on this. Everybody doesn't always like this one. But he made a whip out of cords and drove all from the temple courts of both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. So this is Christ that goes in and clears the table out. And every time I picture that, I don't think he was muscle bound necessarily, but he was a carpenter, probably had some pretty strong forearms, and he was in physical shape. You don't see anybody going, you know what, this Jesus, kind of wimpy. We can take him. They obviously got out of his way. He must have had some muscle. If we're going to function the best that we can, we don't have to by any means become muscle bound, but we do want to do strength training so that our muscles become stronger. We'll last longer, we'll have greater endurance, and we'll be more effective in service if we've actually got some muscle there. So I would say at minimum, have one strength training session a week. If you're young, if you're in your 20s, you can do 3 days a week. I do 3 days a week at age 47, but I still have trouble recuperating in time. So I might do one ultra heavy day a week and two lighter days that make sure that it gets a lot of the blood flow through the muscles, gets as many of the toxins out as possible. And I'll do a running day that's kind of longer and harder. And then I'll do two either light runs or walks just to make sure that I'm keeping my body fluid and I'm keeping my body strong. So if we are weak overall physically, then we do need to do some sort of strength training to make sure we become a little bit stronger so our body is more able to serve in a vibrant way and we don't always feel exhausted. Yeah, Tim says he wasn't passive, he was passionate. No doubt, Tim. And I love the picture here. I'll do a podcast on this in a few weeks, but he made a whip out of cords. It's not like he had this sudden burst of reaction and grabbed the closest thing and started swinging. He made a whip. It was all very conscious and very intentional. So it's a great scene, and you don't see anybody stopping him. So muscle is the third aspect. And then the fourth aspect is marathon. And this isn't necessarily running a marathon, but it's moving from frustrated in life to a flow in life so that we're looking at the long term and not just the short term. Often it's taught, especially in motivational circles, make every moment count. The truth is, it's hard for every moment to count. It's very difficult because we get exhausted, we get overwhelmed, and it also feels like there's just a bunch of pressure. But when we look long term and we see life as a marathon, we're going to move from frustrated to flowing. We're going to have more purpose, we're going to have more direction, and we're looking at the cumulative effect of our life rather than the momentary effect of our life. So Paul wrote in Philippians 3:12, not that I've already obtained all this or I've already arrived at my goal, but I press on to take hold of that for which Christ Jesus took hold of me. At this point in Paul's life, most people would have felt fairly complete. He'd reached a lot of goals. He'd gone on a lot of missionary journeys by this time. He'd had a huge impact on the kingdom, and most people would have said his life is very successful. But he was looking at it, not that I've already attained all this, not that I'm already living this life that Christ wants me to. He was looking at the long-term cumulative effect of his life, not simply, here's what I have attained up to this point. He knew that there was even more for him to do and more on the agenda. So that our lives are not about short-term service, but long-term service. That we're living this life of service as we looked at Mark 10:45, and we're doing it for the long term and not simply for, making it through the day. And often with life, we are trying to survive the day, and I know that's necessary at times, but when we've got that bigger mission and that clearer picture, then we end up being able to be fueled in a way that allows us to flow and get rid of the frustration. So in body, it's those four key areas for me as mission, mana, muscle, and marathon. Any questions about that section before we move to the beliefs section? Any questions about body, about workouts, anything along those lines? And if that was clear, just type in clear. So this is the type of thing that I'll go back to just as a reminder. Just to be able to say, okay, I want to make sure that I'm staying in line with my body. I want to make sure I'm on mission. I want to make sure that I'm eating right. I want to make sure that I'm working out. I want to make sure that I've got a long-term focus. Good. Deborah asked if I do interval training. Deborah, when I'm really trying to cut fat, I will do interval training. So let's say that I'm trying to get more lean. Then what I've found is that when I'm doing more sprints, I get leaner quicker. So I'll actually cut down the distance and I'll do higher intensity with shorter bursts. So I might do, let's say, 2 minutes of a slow jog and then 45 seconds to a minute of a sprint. And that really works as a catalyst for my metabolism and allows me to drop fat a lot faster. So great question on that. Beth says, I like your approach and perspective, and other people are saying clear, 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 etc. Good. All right, so let's move to the next section, and this is on beliefs. On beliefs. So this is a key element of our brain and the way that we're thinking and the way that we're processing. Most of us can do pretty good with our body. It's hard to be disciplined. We don't always work out as much as we said we were going to, and we don't always eat as well as we said we were going to. That can be a challenge. But the key is that we want to make sure that we're doing what is right to get our mind right. Really quick, Tim threw a verse in here is good. 1 Timothy 4:8. Physical training is profitable. We can't ignore it. It profits us some, right? We're not totally spiritual. Sometimes as believers, we want to act like, well, it's all about the spiritual, but it's about the physical too. And it's also about our beliefs. It's about our brain. So here are the 4 sections of belief. Number 1 is our faith. Obviously, we have covered a lot of faith material so far, but we want to move from apathy to accountability. People have often said that the opposite of love is not hate, it's apathy. It's just not being intentional on the way that we love people. And so my verse, obviously, for this is Mark 12:30. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and your mind, with all your strength. The second is like it. Love your neighbors yourself. There's no commandment greater than these. This is the real key to being focused on our faith. It's not simply about me knowing enough or being educated enough in scripture, even though I believe that daily Bible study is essential and is something that we need to do. But how does it come out? Well, we see this in Mark. In the book Galatians, it says that the entire law and the prophets are summed up in this one command: love your neighbors yourself. So if we've got these 2 down, that this is what we're focused on, loving God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and loving our neighbors ourselves, then this is going to get our brain right, because we're going to be functioning from the greatest purpose of all, and that is love. And we become accountable because our actions from our thoughts, loving actions, are they right actions? Regardless of how we've been treated, regardless of how we've been hurt, are we still loving other people effectively? And when it comes to a lot of the arguments, the theological arguments that we get into, a few years ago when I was working in campus ministry, I had some guys that came up and wanted to argue about a particular doctrinal issue. And to them, it was like humongous. It was like this big, big issue. And I'm not even going to mention it because you guys would be going, really? Somebody was arguing over that? But honestly, within our faith, we've argued over all kinds of silly things. So we were talking and they were like, Paul, what's your position on this? I said, well, I'll answer your question, but I want you to answer my question first. And they said, okay. I said, well, what's the greatest command? They said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. I said, cool. What's the second? Love your neighbors yourself. I said, cool. All right. So can you love God any more than you do right now? And they went, yeah, I could. Can you love your neighbor any more than you do right now? Like you don't gossip, you don't backbite, you don't hurt them or anything like that. No, we could definitely love them more. I said, so I just want to make sure I get this right. You can't do the top 2, but you're concerned about number 1500. And they were like, dude, you didn't have to put it like that, right? Because these are the top 2. These are the ones that actually matter the most. These are the ones that count. These are the commands that are essential, because there's very few commands that take care of everything, but these 2 do that. Because if we're loving the Lord with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, how many decisions immediately change if it's based on loving the Lord? If we're loving our neighbors, we love ourselves, what all changes? The way that we treat people, the way that we talk about people, the way that we view people, the way that we accept people. It all shifts radically when these 2 are our essentials. And when we're thinking from a love perspective rather than any other perspective, then our mind becomes a lot healthier, a lot more on track, and our decisions become a lot easier, and they also become a lot healthier. So within faith, making sure our beliefs are right, we center first on these 2 commands, and then everything really flows into these. So with the framework, sometimes when I'm talking to some of my friends, they'll say, well, I don't see you having anything in this framework specifically about, how to become a better spouse or how to become a better friend. All of that's under faith. All of our relationships are under faith, but it all begins with our mind. When we've got our mind right and centered on love, then our relationships, the way that we treat others, our interaction with them, all radically shifts and becomes different. Secondly, is our focus. So within our focus, we want to move from blurry to bright. And here are the things that we focus on. And again, you can replace any of these passages with ones that you like, but I really like to have an anchor. So my anchor for focus is Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever's true, whatever's noble, whatever's right, whatever's pure, what is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Now, this is a filter for me for what I watch, for what I listen to, for conversations that I'm part of. And it's still not easy, not for me anyway, because there's like a lot of movies that come out that I feel like are going to be very entertaining, but they're not going to measure up against this focus passage. Because if my focus is off, then the rest of my thinking and what I entertain in my mind gets off as well. So when I start asking if certain thoughts are true or right or pure or lovely, suddenly it shifts my focus on what I'm allowed into my life and what I allow to go out of my life. I was talking to one of my buddies last week, and we were talking a little bit about just how negative people are and things that they say. Like I'm going to pull up a little image here on my phone real quick because I'd taken this image because this is something that a handful of years ago I would have posted. And the image said, let's see if I can find it real quick. I may have actually already deleted it. Here we go. Not everyone likes me, but not everyone matters. So we see these types of posts on Facebook all the time. Not everyone likes me, but not everyone matters. Well, there's some truth to that technically, but that's not a true, a right, a lovely, an admirable statement. Maybe everybody doesn't matter, but if my focus is right, I see everyone as mattering, even if they're not going to come alongside me, even if they're not going to have the same faith system or belief system, even if they are going to be harsh or be cynical. But I don't have to be those things. I don't have to live that life. I don't have to have the focus that says if people don't agree with me or they don't like me, well, too bad. They can just go on. I know people aren't going to like me, but that doesn't give me the right to not like them or to push them away or to not love them. So this filter of what's true and right and lovely, admirable, praiseworthy, I'm thinking about those things. And if it doesn't match that, I'm supposed to get rid of those. Again, this is tough. It's tough to control that brain, but at least I've got a list to go to measure against so that Paul Evans isn't making the list up. Because if I make up the list, it's going to have holes, it's going to have gaps, it's going to allow things through that really shouldn't be there because that's my nature. But now I've got a passage that I can use to stay focused so that when somebody says, hey, let's go watch X, Y, and Z, I can say, you know what, I'd love to do that, but I can't because it's going to cause me to go against my focus. And so that's a lot easier for them to take than for me to go, well, you know what? Truth is, that movie just isn't holy. And I'm being holy. People don't react as well to that as me going, hey, I've got a passage that I live by, Philippians 4:8. And because of that passage, it just isn't in alignment with that. So I'm just not going to be able to see it. So that makes a big, big difference to be able to have that sort of go-to, or at least it works better for me. The third element is fear. So we've got faith, we got focus, and then we've got fear. This is a big battle for the mind as well. So we're going to move from being beat down mentally to being bold, to accepting who we are, and to believe in who we are, in our gifts and our talents and our abilities as they've been given to us. But 1 John 4:18 says there's no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. The reason that we don't like reviews, we don't like critiques, we don't like people looking at our work and grading it is because we don't feel loved when that happens. We feel the opposite of that. We feel beat down. We feel hurt. Sometimes we feel angry. We feel judged. We feel punished. On the opposite side, if we write a book and put it up on Amazon and somebody gives us a 5-star review, what do we feel? Excited? Yeah. Accepted, yeah, but ultimately we we feel loved. And that's what almost every human being is searching for. I know that sounds crazy, and it's almost one of those, kind of Christian sayings that kind of flows into our mindset of, what, we love God, we love people, everybody's searching for love. But the truth is, whether we call it acceptance or whether we call it love, it's what people are driven by. And the reason that we don't release our work, the reason we don't finish the book, the reason we don't post the article, the reason that we don't put our art up in a gallery, or we don't follow through and do the recital, is we'll say it's not ready yet. But what we mean is, I don't want to get the beat down. I don't want to get the judgment. I don't want to get the review because I'm afraid that I won't be loved. And so perfect love drives out all fear. So instead, if we're thinking about, well, you know what, my art may not be perfect. And my book, personally, my books all have grammatical errors because I think that like grammar and punctuation are like optional. So there's always going to be those mistakes, right? But why did we do this thing? Remember, all the way back to mission, if our mission is to serve, then part of the way that I'm serving is that I'm going to be putting stuff out there. Is it going to be perfect? No. Am I going to get bad assignments sometimes and people expect Paul Evans to come through in a way that he's not gifted in? Absolutely. And if I allow fear to reign, then I end up not producing any sort of service. But instead, if I realize that I am loved by the Father, I may be afraid of man, but he's going to be thrilled even with my most incomplete work. He's going to be excited that I went out and I actually produced something and did something. Casey, I think, is on the call today. I was in New York with Casey last week. We were shooting some videos. And I told her that one of my friends, one day I was not finishing a book, not finishing some work. And one of our friends said, I never figured you for a digger. And she said, a digger? I said, yeah. I knew immediately what my friend meant when she said, I never figured you for a digger. She was talking about the parable of the talents. One received 1 talent, 2 talents, 1 5 talents. The 2 and the 5 doubled, and the 1 talent just hit it. Just hit it. Said, I hit it because I knew you were a hard man. I hit it because I was afraid. And the master was like, you wicked and lazy servant. I would have rather you given it to the money lenders and at least earned some interest, right? Why? Because the imperfect released, the imperfect with effort still shines more brightly for the Lord than whatever we feel like is our best that we keep hidden, that we stay silent on. And so fear is a huge battleground, and we'll do some future training in 1010 on really releasing the mind. And if you go to the1010.life, www.the1010.life, over on the right-hand side, you'll see a product called Brainwashed, and it's all about freeing your mind and having the right perspective and making sure that you've got a strong mind and you overcome fear and overcome the overwhelm of the mind. And then finally is fire. Fire. So we want to move from being a victim to being a valet. And most of us probably thought, oh yeah, victim to victor. We usually say that. But I say a valet. This is the person who takes your car and the person that serves you, that we need to become a servant within our fire. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion, the God of all comfort. He comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort that we ourselves have received from God. One of the challenges is when we go through the fire, because we did not expect for things to go bad for us because we're believers. I was in ministry full time when my wife died literally in my arms. I would have thought that I would have gotten a pass, right? Should I have not received like more protection? Nope, I didn't. So what am I now for other people? I'm a valet for other people. If anyone has a spouse die at a young age, or if the spouse dies and they have a child, guess who gets that call? Me. I get the call because I've lived that. And I guarantee you that I can help them walk through that fire better than someone who's never experienced that. Those of you who have gone through a divorce, even though you hated it and it's painful and you were hurt, those of you who are betrayed, those of you who were abused or abandoned. So we were comforted by the Lord in those troubles so that we can in turn comfort other people. The way that we keep our mind healthy is not allowing our troubles to overwhelm us and to make us feel hurt, but instead to use those challenges as a blessing to other people and help them walk out of the fire. So we move from victim to valet. So on days that I feel like, man, this didn't go the way I wanted, and I thought, Lord, you're going to come through better than that, then I realize that this is going to be something that in the future is going to be able to help somebody else walk through that same problem and not get scorched. Right? So within beliefs, we've got our faith, our focus, our fear, and our fire. Any questions about this section? Anything to add or anything that you want to add in? Oh, good, Dwayne, thanks. On this is 2 Corinthians 1, verses 3 and 4. Let me back out, actually, and correct that real quick. That's a good one. Appreciate you bringing that up. 2 Corinthians 1, 3, and 4. All right, is that all that clear? Makes sense? Helpful? From blurry to bright, Wes. Subpoint on focus is from blurry to bright. Pam says, love that line about the imperfect shines brighter, etc. Good, Pam. A lot of thanks. Great info. Yes, good. Loving this. Cool. Thanks, guys. All right, last section, business. Colossians 3:23. Now you can apply this to yourself if you're employed or if you run your own business. I do a lot of online business, and so that's my framework. And so apply these to where you are as they fit and as they match. However, if you've got experiences or you've got knowledge or you've got an idea or a message that you want to share with the world, then these following 4 steps are a great way to do it. It's what I've used for the past 25 or so years to do my online business. And it's a really simple structure, and it's a structure that works out really well. So first of all is our message. And with our message, we want to move from being pithy to actually having a platform. So pithy is just like saying, something along the lines of, something that we will say that doesn't mean anything, but it sounds good. So that we might say something along the lines of, I might say something that I help speakers discover their true value, share that with the world the most effective way so that they can impact as many as possible. So that can be pithy, but do I really have a platform with that? So my platform for speakers is called $1 Million Keynote, that shows them how to take one message and create not only a keynote from it, but a book, a product, coaching, etc. So do you have an actual platform for your message? Sometimes people will say, I've got this great talk. I think there ought to be a book about it. But the truth is, it's a 6-minute talk, and there's not enough content for there to actually be a book about it. So you want your message to be strong. It's something that is a cause for you, something that you can build strong content around, and something that you're very confident in. So your message should be such a position of strength that you know exactly what you stand for, what you're communicating, and the value that the people are going to receive. So Joshua 24:15, I'd call this a platform. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable for you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. That's not pithy. It's not this nice little like platitudinal statement. Instead, it's a platform. Hey, if you want to serve somebody else, go do it. As for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord. All right. So that type of message you could take and write books about. Like, what would it take for you and your house to serve the Lord? I mean, that's an entire book, right? You could do a 4-week course, 6-week course around that. All of these things are something that are substantial, not simply a nice talk or a nice article, but enough information to build an entire business around. So sometimes we have a message that we feel good about and a thought and idea that we want to share, but it doesn't really have a foundational anchor value to it. So the first question to ask about your message is it strong enough? One of the questions or one of the fill in the blanks that I will use a lot is I love to help people blank because I'm sick of seeing blank. Like I love to help people build a legitimate online business because I'm sick of seeing people taken advantage of and spending all of their money on products that don't work. Right. So I could take that and make it a platform, making it a positional statement that I end up building the rest of the business around. So even with my message, I'm going to end up creating a framework like I've done here, Body Beliefs in Business. And then out of each one of those, we've got 4 elements. So you could see, guys, this material actually being a book, right? We would have 12, 13, 14, 15 chapters in it, plus an introduction, all taken from the framework. So if you're in business for yourself, have that message that's strong enough that you can actually rely on and lean on. The second is our market. So these are our people. And there's a lot of people out there in the marketplace that are hurt. Often we'll say that if we're going to go out and serve a particular arena, then we've got to find out what their problem is and we're going to solve their problem, right? So we're going to move from the people from hurting to actually helping. We're going to help them. We're going to give them exactly what they need to flourish. I love this from Luke 7:44. Then he turned toward the woman. He said to Simon, "Do you see this woman? I came into your house. You did not give me any water for my feet, but she wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair." I love that image that he turned toward the woman. He made eye contact with the woman. He let the woman know that she was valuable as he made this really kind of tough statement to Simon. In other words, Jesus was an advocate for this woman, even as he pronounced judgment on Simon. Our marketplace should feel that we are out for them, that we are on their side, that we are about their business, that we're there to help them, not to hurt them in any way, not to take advantage of them in any way, not that we're simply out to make money, but we're out to make their business better. As Zig Ziglar probably said it best, you can have everything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. So what are we there doing? We're trying to help, more than anything else, help these folks become better, to solve their problem. And so our message should make it clear that we are the ones that can help the market and help their problem go away. That our solution is super evident in the message that we're sharing. It should be very attractional. And then within the model itself, we're going to move from flawed to fit. And by flawed, I mean when we will go out there and look at what we want to do or what we want to become, often, at least I see this a lot in online business, people will look at something that's making money and they'll try to go out and do that thing. But that's kind of like me deciding today that mechanic shops make a lot of money, and so I'm going to become a mechanic. I will tell you right now, that would be a bad move. I mean, I'm lucky to put gas in the car. I am not going to be repairing anybody's vehicle unless I go to school first. But in the online world, everybody kind of makes it sound like just follow this simple little system and boom, everything works. What we want instead is we want there to be a fit. So Matthew 4:19, follow me, I'll make you fishers of men. Who's he talking to? He's talking to fishermen. He's talking their language. He's fitting them into a model that they're already very familiar with. If we're going to be successful in business, let's make sure that the model matches, that it fits us, that it's something that we like and something that we actually want to do. I teach 3 different types of models to folks. Folks are either going to be a coach, they are going to be a teacher, or they're going to be a reporter. And this is in the online information business world. So if you're a coach, you instruct people one-to-one, you give them assignments, they go and do the work, you answer their questions. If you're a teacher, you share information like I'm doing right now, and the students go and they apply the information, right? And if you're a reporter, I might just report on other things that are already out there. So I might have a book review site, and then I send people through my Amazon link, and I make money as an affiliate of Amazon. Let's go back to the coaching example. If there's a product out that says how to make 6 figures doing telephone coaching, and I hate the phone, it's not going to be a model that fits. It's a flawed model. Everybody that's in my email coaching knows that I answer the emails by drawing a box around their question and talking out the answer. I record like a little on-screen video. I don't type out an answer because 5 minutes of me talking is the equivalent of about 30 minutes of me typing. I hate to type. It does not go very well. So I talk all my answers. Why? Because it fits. The other way for me would be long. It'd be frustrating. I'm going to misspell half the words. It will be a flawed response. So when you're looking at your business model, make sure that it's a fit for you and you're not just pursuing it because somebody said you could make money doing it. And then finally is to monetize it. So these are our products, our solutions, whether it's affiliates, whether it is a digital product that we release, whether it's a physical product, whether it's a book, how we monetize it. We want to move from plugging to being profitable. People are not just going to buy because you have it on your website or because they come across it. You got to actually tell them about what you're doing, and you've got to make sure that you're producing in a way that's going to be profitable and you're actually crunching those numbers. You find out what your overhead is, you find out what your fulfillment costs are, and then after that is going to become your profits. It's going to allow you to move into that new area. So I tend to think about it that coaches have premium products. A teacher has a regular product like a course or even just a one-time download. And then a reporter basically points. They point people in a direction. They don't actually have a product at all. They point, people go over there and buy it, and they get paid. So however you want to monetize your business, you get to choose. But instead of just plugging away, make sure that it's a fit, and that's going to help you be a lot more profitable. My verse here is Deuteronomy 8:18. But remember, the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth, and so confirms his covenant, which he swore to your ancestors, as it is today. I believe that this is actually a spiritual principle. Sometimes people will say, well, Paul, how in the world do these people of the world make so much money? Because the Lord's given you the ability to produce wealth. He's given that to everybody who is an entrepreneur spirit, who has the drive, who has the dedication, who will follow the business plan, who will work at it. Whether they're a believer or an unbeliever, the promise is it's the Lord who's given you the ability to create wealth. Is everybody going to give him credit for that? No. And even ourselves, if we give him credit, does not mean necessarily that we're going to be profitable, even though we're doing it in his service. We still have to work. We still have to focus. We still have to pursue. But what we don't want to do is just to be plugging away and not be profitable at all. We need to make sure that we have that very clear business plan, those steps in place, and we're actually following that process. The scripture for model, Cheryl, let me go back. Matthew 4:19. Follow me, I'll make you fishers of men. Good. All right. Any questions about this section? Any questions about this section? If it's clear, if you got any questions about online business or even business in general. I talked a lot about online business in these examples, and I've got business spelled wrong, but there are other things that you may want to cover just from a natural business perspective. Clear or questions on this section? The last question in the message block, Dwayne, I'm not sure. I don't have any notes. Might have to go back and look at it. Good, clear, clear, clear. Dwayne says, I love to help people. I love it. Good. Awesome. Okay, so overall, we covered body, beliefs, and business. Body is encompassed in mission, mana, muscle, marathon. Beliefs, focus. No, faith, focus, fear, fire. And business is message, market, model, monetize. If you got any questions, type those in now. Good. Deborah says, wonderful framework. And I'll send out the recording later tonight. And then if you want to work one-to-one on 1010 on this framework, on anything, just email me at the1010life@gmail.com and I'll send you some possibilities if you're interested in working together on any of this. If you got any questions, just type those in now. Dwayne says, where do you get your images? Usually I get them from Dollar Photo Club. Dollar Photo Club. Dwayne, we're not allowed to use Google Images unless they are royalty free. And that's why I have like a membership to Dollar Photo Club, because all of those are royalty-free images. And otherwise, we just can't use them. They could be protected images. The subtopic on mission. Let's go back. Subtopic on mission. Moving from clueless to clear. Awesome, Rebecca. Great framework. Good. Good. I'll send out the recording tonight, guys. And if you guys want to work together, just email the 1010life@gmail.com. Cheryl says, thank you. This was great. Good, Cheryl. Glad you were able to make it. Hey, Deborah. Good to see you. Glad you made it out. You're welcome. Welcome, Tim. All right, guys. Thanks for coming out today. If you want to work together, hit that email and we'll get started on that. Otherwise, thank you for coming out for the 1010 Life framework. As always, success is not an accident. Shelly says, are you talking about working together as a group or just with me? Just with me, Shelly. I may launch something for a group at the beginning of the year. We'll see. Thanks, Even. Thanks, Bert. Good to see you, bud. Thanks, Wes. Cool, Casey. Glad you came. All right, guys. Be blessed. I'm out.